The man's only hobby is playing mahjong. He always plays a couple of rounds after work and comes home very late. His wife always thinks he's working overtime at the office. Little does she know Shota has already lost 450,000 yen gambling. Fortunately, this time Shota resolved to quit mahjong. After turning down invitations from his idle friends, Shota headed home earlier than usual for the first time. But just one glance at the sushi shop by the roadside, Shota dashed back to the card club to play mahjong. This time he won money. Afterward, his heart was filled with regret once more. After ignoring his friend's invitation to eat noodles, in a fit of shame and anger, he kicked a pebble on the ground, only to accidentally hit a passerby on the head, who happened to be Moguro Fukuzo. Blood streaming from his head, Moguro Fukuzo bared his teeth and declared he was fine. Shota remained utterly unaware of the kind of entity he'd provoked. After sharing drinks with Moguro Fukuzo at the tavern, Shota confided his troubles with mahjong. He couldn't control his desire, and finds it hard to decline his friend's enthusiastic invitations. Upon hearing this, the kind-hearted Moguro Fukuzo offered to be his personal Mr. Decline, to help him dodge those pointless gatherings. Upon returning home and seeing his wife toiling over the children inside the window, Shota's resolve only grew stronger. But who could have predicted that the very next day, Shota would forget his own resolve from yesterday? After a few words from his friends, he was ready to head out after work for a couple of games. Fortunately, Moguro Fukuzo appeared just in time, and forcibly took Shota away. Though Shota was completely bewildered, he obediently returned home. His sudden early return took his wife completely by surprise, but mostly made her happy. And the next day, Shota returned home early again under Moguro Fukuzo's guidance. This feeling of kicking a bad habit was truly satisfying. But as time went on, Shota started feeling listless, because every day after work he had to take care of the baby, and at night he still had to fulfill his marital duties. This has left him nearly exhausted, especially since he started coming home early. His wife has been idly watching TV all the time, which made Shota feel deeply uneasy. So, at his colleague's urging, he decided to sneak in a couple of games behind Moguro Fukuzo's back. But just as he drew his winning tile, Moguro Fukuzo appeared before him like a ghost. Upon learning it was Shota, invited by the man with the crew cut, the next day, the buzzcut guy fell into a well on his way to work and suffered serious injuries. This sent a chill down Shota's spine, but he still sought out Moguro Fukuzo, and proactively declared he no longer needed the refusal master, urging Moguro Fukuzo to leave him immediately. Little did he know he'd provoked the one person he shouldn't have. This man has a peculiar habit. He'd rather stay up late reading the newspaper after work than go home. Even the coffee shop owner refuses to serve someone like him, because Yuta always orders a small cup of coffee, sips it slowly all night long. The supermarket owner knows this behavior all too well. Yuta could freeload magazines for 4 hours at the newspaper stand. A man so skilled at living frugally, yet his face shows no trace of happiness. It turns out that 8 years ago, Yuta bought an old house. The upstairs rooms were occupied by the children. The couple had to sleep on the floor, because their son was studying for exams, and couldn't even watch TV at night. His wife constantly complained about his low salary and their difficult life. Yuta simply didn't want to return to such a home. His greatest wish was to have his own private space. The kind-hearted Moguro Fukuzo, upon hearing his troubles, actually took Yuta straight to an apartment, promising he could come here to rest anytime. But there was one rule he must follow: no bringing members of the opposite sex here. The next day, Yuta shed his usual sluggishness, clocked out on time and hurried to his new apartment. Followed a recipe to make a plate of spaghetti, watching baseball on TV. This is just too comfortable. But just then, there's a sudden knock at the door. A girl claimed she was being harassed by a pervert, and asked Yuta to let her hide in his room for a while. Yuta intended to follow Moguro Fukuzo's advice and refuse the girl, but the girl looked homeless, reminded him of himself. Cut to 3 freshly made breakfasts. Yuta, who should be resting on the weekend, hurriedly leaves home. This arouses suspicion in his wife and children, so the eldest son quietly follows him. Meanwhile, Yuta arrives at the apartment building once more, to prepare himself a hearty breakfast. But just then, the girl reappeared. She walks in without Yuta's permission, to repay Yuta for yesterday. She even took off Yuta's jacket. The two walked to the windowsill, were captured on camera by the eldest son who had followed them, returning home to face his wife's interrogation. Yuta's face once again bore the look of utter despair. His wife's beating drove Yuta out of the house. He instinctively headed to that small apartment, but unexpectedly, the apartment's owner had already returned. Furious, Yuta encountered Moguro Fukuzo downstairs, who immediately accused him of deliberately setting him up. But Moguro Fukuzo wasn't about to reason with him. Those who break the rules only deserve punishment. As early as last century in Japan, housing had already become a mountain-crushing menace. Due to Japan's narrow land area, pigeon coops were everywhere. A residence with an independent courtyard became the aspiration of most people. Because of family reasons, Yuta had no choice but to look for a spacious place to live. But now housing prices were soaring rapidly. An affordable and suitable house might be impossible to find in a lifetime. After hearing this, the kind-hearted Moguro Fukuzo resolutely chose to help Shoyuta. After all, even a devil occasionally wants to do a good deed. The first apartment they visited shocked Shoyuta. Such a spacious house only cost 20 million yen. But when he opened the door, what came into view was a residence that required a ladder to enter and exit. Feeling the violent wind howling over the roof, the entire house seemed to be on the verge of collapsing. Moguro Fukuzo then took Shoyuta to a cemetery. Not only was the environment good here, but there were countless neighbors in the middle of the night. Besides that, there was a top-floor house with a view of the entire city. But after looking around, none of them were suitable for Shoyuta. This made him doubt life even more. Why do rich people worry about having more money than they can spend, while he couldn't even give his family a home? Listening to his family's complaints, Shoyuta visited an exquisitely decorated house. Everything here was exactly what he had dreamed of. Fortunately, Moguro Fukuzo hadn't given up on helping Shoyuta. He found an identical house to this one, and Shoyuta could get it for free, just by test living for a period of time. How could there be such a good deal? Shoyuta couldn't believe it, but he quickly brought his wife and children here. Passing through a long tunnel, a spacious living room appeared. Everything in front of them made his wife and children disbelief. Not only was the sea right outside the window, but the kitchen was also extremely spacious. But could everything really be this good? This is absolutely the truest portrayal of middle-aged people today. Kanzuya often pulls all-nighters at work until he passes out, then wakes up in the morning and goes right back to work until evening. But when he got home today, he found his quilt placed at the doorway. His wife told him he'd have to sleep there from now on, because their daughter had started her menstrual period, so their son and daughter could no longer share the same room. And in Tokyo, where every inch of land is precious, before their financial burden had even lightened, the kids had already grown up. It was at this time that Moguro Fukuzo set his sights on this poor man. Moguro Fukuzo suggested Kanzuya send his family to live in the countryside, while he continued working in Tokyo. He could then go back to visit his wife and kids on weekends. After all, Kanzuya was swamped with work. Aside from rest days, he barely got to see his kids anyway. Later, Moguro Fukuzo introduced a great place to them. To his surprise, Kanzuya's wife was very satisfied with it. It was a bit far, but it had everything they needed: hospitals, schools, you name it. Even the kids fell in love with the place. However, there was one thing to note here. They must never go into the deep mountains across from the house. Seeing how much his wife and kids loved it, Kanzuya rented the house. He continued living in his apartment in the city as usual, only getting to reunite with his family on weekends. Kanzuya was extremely grateful to Moguro Fukuzo for this. He'd never seen his family so happy before. Sometime later, Kanzuya's boss suddenly asked him to handle an urgent document, which would take up his entire weekend, but he couldn't refuse his boss's order. After explaining the situation to his wife, Kanzuya started working overtime. Later, Kanzuya completed the task brilliantly. His boss insisted on treating him to a few drinks to celebrate. No matter how hard Kanzuya tried to decline, he couldn't resist his boss's enthusiasm. That night, Kanzuya tried to call his family, but couldn't get through. Just as he was about to call again, his boss dragged him back to drinking. After the drinking session ended, Kanzuya tried calling again, but this time, there was still no response. When he hurried back to the countryside, terrifying children's songs suddenly started playing all around him. In a daze, Kanzuya walked into the deep mountains. Later, Kanzuya's boss noticed he hadn't come to work for a week, so he decided to go check on him in the countryside too. Then another week passed, and the employees were shocked to find that their boss had disappeared as well. This is the most satisfying episode among the laughing salesman's myriad endings. Yuma, having been aided, follows his true heart, never forgetting Moguro Fukuzo's counsel, and truth itself bears witness. Moguro Fukuzo truly was a kind soul. Yuma lived in a flat where pets weren't allowed, yet secretly kept a parrot. Today, his spiteful neighbor seized an opportunity and reported him to the landlord while he was out. Yuma works drawing manga for a company. He adores his work so much he even declines any social gatherings. But today, that detestable neighbor let his parrot loose. Hearing Yuma's anguished cries, the neighbor was overjoyed. A heartbroken Yuma caught the attention of Moguro Fukuzo. It's hard to say who was right or wrong in this matter. The flat clearly states no pets allowed. The neighbor next door doesn't seem to have done anything wrong either. But the parrot had long become Yuma's emotional anchor, and lost love can only be replaced by new love. So Moguro Fukuzo found Yuma a tin of eucalyptus saplings. As long as you water it every day, it will grow into splendid branches. Though plants cannot respond to Yuma like animals, but with care, even branches can connect through the heart. Just as Yuma was about to retort, Moguro Fukuzo delivered a direct hit with his kinetic wave. Soon after, green leaves sprouted from the soil, seemingly soothing the wounds in Yuma's heart. Yuma shifted from drawing birds to drawing trees. This feeling was utterly wonderful, and the toy sloth in the tree became a new creation goal. Soon, the brilliant scenes caught the boss's attention. Yuma's painted eucalyptus and sloth were also featured on TV. Fortune smiled upon Yuma. This made Yuma deeply grateful to Moguro Fukuzo, and Yuma would heed Moguro Fukuzo's words, caring for this eucalyptus tree. Yet on the other side, the neighbors were rummaging through Yuma's belongings, simply to find the pet Yuma had been doting on at home these past days, but he could never have imagined that very object was the eucalyptus tree in the corner. Yet the neighbor was utterly lacking in manners, destroyed Yuma's eucalyptus tree for their own amusement. Listening to Yuma's anguished cries, the neighbor flashed that despicable grin once more, but what he didn't expect was that Moguro Fukuzo had already arrived, using his power to restore the eucalyptus tree to life, and had quietly made his way to the neighbor's room. Countless branches burst through the neighbor's broken window. Yuma awoke to the sound but saw nothing, and this time, it must be said, Moguro Fukuzo's punishment proved far too lenient.